Keys to the Commonwealth, a podcast where we share the real stories of local community members who are using real estate to build personal wealth, along with tips and tricks from professionals across the industry. And now, your host, Landry Fields.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. I've got some great guys in the studio with me today, and together they are the lending team with the Guaranteed Rates Lexington, Central Kentucky branch. Combined, they have about 30 years of real estate lending experience or banking experience, and both these guys come from the banking world, which lends some great expertise and knowledge that they're able to use when it comes to working with real estate investors and lending side of things. It is my pleasure to have Mitch Florence and Josh Harman today on the show to talk about lending and some of the ways you can utilize conventional loans, etc., in the real estate investing process. Guys, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. So as we start every episode out with hop back in the DeLorean and kind of give the overhead view on how you got into mortgage lending and so forth. Who wants to start? Mitch, you start?
Just lucky, I guess, right?
Yeah.
No, so my educational
Is that what it was?
that's what I tell people. My educational background is actually in finance, and graduated college in 2010. Went right into the banking world.
Yep.
Kind of worked my way around the community banking level, which I will say from an experience standpoint, I would never trade. Taught me a lot about the industry, taught me a lot about lending itself, but eventually moved into a position as a loan officer and been lending ever since.
Okay.
And myself started back in the banking business in 2003. Really didn't know what I'm going to do when I got out of school, and started working at a local community bank here for, spent 18 years there, but I got to jump into mortgage processing there and managed a little bit and just kind of just took off with it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the way a lot of people end up. It's like, I don't know how I ended up in where I'm at, but just kind of played itself out. And, of course, you guys both have banking backgrounds, which, like I said in the intro, lends to some extra expertise that I think, typically somebody just in straight mortgage might not have in that respect. So talk to me a little bit about as far as, transitioning to build your own book or starting out, kind of switching over to Guaranteed Rate, what that's been like, kind of building that book of business, relationships, and so forth.
I think, what I learned early on in the banking world, I worked with some great people, just taking care of people. Yeah. So my book of business just kind of really was generated from a lot of client referrals, repeat business, and really just taking care of the realtors as well. Mitch and I talk a lot about communication. Early on, just communicate, take care of people, and it kind of just business continues to come back typically. So
before you say something, Mitch, to harp on that, it's amazing how if you just do what you say you're going to do, you're already doing way better than a lot of people out there, no matter what the business is, right?
Exactly.
No, and I agree. And we're all in sales, right?
Yeah.
We're all selling something, even though I don't like to describe it like that.
I would say advisor in a lot of ways, type of thing.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I would describe myself as more of a consultant or advisor as well. But at the end of the day, we're all selling something. Sales isn't hard. To Josh's point, treat people right, be ethical, do what you're saying you're going to do, communicate. I mean, that's recipe for success. But mortgage specifically to your question, as far as generating your own business, I've always been in a position to kind of what an old banking boss of mine used to say: "Eat what you kill." Right. So I've never really been in a position of having leads brought to me or given to me on a substantial level. So I think building a relationship is always something that I've concentrated on and kind of felt naturally moving to Guaranteed Rate to be able to do that.
Yeah. So coming from the banking and commercial kind of saying things as far as your all's backgrounds, that's a unique perspective, obviously, for real estate investors from a conventional loan side of things or so forth. So, talk to me about some of the ways you guys are able to kind of cross, not cross those things together, but obviously your knowledge of having both benefits, obviously, people you might be working with in that respect. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Right. I think it's a benefit to clients because we do know what the best product is for them, whether it's something that we have that works well for them or we have a buddy in the business that we have built a relationship with. If they need a portfolio loan at a local bank, then they need a portfolio loan. So I think it's just having that mindset of find the right product, number one. Number two, if it's not with us, guaranteed rate, then we'll still assist them and help them through it.
And to attest to that, I'll give you the shout out for my business partner, where we started on one path, but then it led into more of a portfolio multi-property deal that you kind of set us up with that local bank or set him up for that local bank, that type of thing. So that was awesome. So I appreciate that. So kudos to that, and I echo what he just said that they will do that.
And I think that's a testament to Josh's relationships that he's built. And for me, when I started as a loan officer, I cut my teeth on commercial lending.
Yeah.
I think when we talk to people about investment or non-owner occupied properties, if someone just Googled mortgage for 1 to 4 family rental, I would assume you're going to be, bombarded with Fannie, Freddie guidelines, which is a relevant way to finance a non-owner occupied. It's not the only way. And I think that's a misconception in the mortgage world is, no disrespect, a lot of mortgage people may not have that experience to talk about the other sides of lending, your commercial routes, in-house portfolio deals, because again, there's more out there than just Fannie or Freddie.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. As far as those different avenues and so forth, obviously, you got conventional loans with Fannie and Freddie, and usually you're maxed out at 10 conventional loans to your name. So if you're partnering with somebody, that's taking one for both you and your partner type of thing in that respect, right? So is that correct? Do I have that correct?
10 mortgaged properties.
10 mortgaged properties.
Yeah, in your personal name.
Yeah, so you got that option, which, that's sometimes a nice option if you're just wanting to hold a fixed rate, 30-year rate type of scenario on a property.
Agreed.
So somebody wants to do that, what are usually those triggers for why they might be wanting to do that as opposed to, the commercial, usually 5, it's, guaranteed for 5 kind of thing, locked in for, and then it starts changing from there.
You want my quick spiel?
Yeah.
I got this down. I love talking about this. So non-owner occupied or investment. In this market, now this could change, market to market. There may be different avenues depending on where you're at geographically. But in this market, you're going to see 3 main financing avenues pursued. Number one is the conforming world. What I mean by that, Fannie, Freddie, depending on what you want to buy, 1 to 4 family, it's got to be in your personal name. You're going to have to meet certain loan to value or down payment requirements.
What does that range usually?
Anywhere from 15 to 25%.
So similar to a lot of commercial options.
I'd say so.
Okay.
The benefit in the conforming world, in my opinion, is probably the access to the long-term fixed rate. Right. So key there is obviously your intentions or outlook for that property, and then where the markets are at. What rate market we're in.
Which is sometimes right now that seems potentially like, hey, that might look like a great idea, not knowing where things are going.
Correct.
Going to
Agreed.
The future,
especially in the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And then secondly, the commercial. I think that name is somewhat misleading because when people hear that, they think of commercial or commercial only. When in reality, a lot of bank or credit union or financial institutions will offer commercial loans for a purpose other than your personal use. So it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be commercial real estate. They'll do a commercial loan on a 1 to 4 family rental, same as I would on a Fannie or Freddie loan. Benefits there, you could probably originate that in a business entity.
Yeah.
You may not have the same loan-to-value restrictions.
Can you do a business entity for conventional loans type of scenario? Or
Fannie and Freddie will not originate a loan
in
a business entity's name.
But you can quit claim it?
Yeah,
there
may be some back-end stuff you could do very specifically, especially with Fannie. That's more of a servicing conversation than origination, but originating it's going to be originated in your personal name.
Okay.
Commercial, again, that could be a little bit of a selling point on the commercial side. The difference there is probably loan structure.
Yeah.
The majority of the time, those are going to be on a shorter amortization, 15, 20, 25 years, maybe, usually on an ARM, 3, 5, 7, 10, is what I see a lot of people.
And talk about an ARM for those that might not know.
Yeah, good question.
We talk about them a lot, but I didn't have a clue what that meant early on, and now obviously I've learned. But
one of my old banking bosses used to joke when he said his kids used to hear him on the phone say, "I sell arms." They looked at him funny. No, ARM or ARM is adjustable rate mortgage.
Okay.
Admittingly, that term itself has probably a negative connotation in the mortgage industry. For me, I think that's totally untrue. Everything's situationally dependent. You need to be educated about what you're financing with, but there's nothing bad about an ARM or adjustable rate. But that's what you see on the commercial side a lot of the times.
Sure. I mean, so outside conventional, like what other products do you all have opportunities for? I've heard of obviously DSCRs and other things like that. Somebody that might be in real estate investing. Are there other options outside of just the conventional?
Yeah. I mean, one of the other major routes that you'll see, kind of my third route in this market that you'll see is non-QM. So non-QM standing for non-qualified mortgage, and that's where you find your DSCR. I know we're throwing a lot of acronyms out there. So DSR is debt service coverage ratio.
Which takes a more conventional commercial approach in looking at rents and stuff like that, right?
Correct.
I would agree. Yeah. You could argue you're more commonsensical method of looking at a loan.
Yes.
That's right.
But as the name implies, basically if that investment property, if the income from that services the debt, that's the majority of how those loans are underwritten, as opposed to your individual tax returns, pay stubs, W-2s, all that.
But wrapped up more in a traditional 30-year kind of thing a lot of times. Yeah.
DSCR, the non-QM, will still offer a wide range of different amortizations, different loan structures. But you can get up to a 30-year fixed on that type of loan.
Josh, you got any points to that?
Yeah, I just great point on that. We're kind of getting our hands on that. That's what's great about guaranteed rate. It's opened us up to a lot more products that can fit, especially the DSCR loan that we're being educated. I'm learning myself right now, but so it's a good product for a lot less headaches of paperwork and stuff like that for sure.
DSCR, is that again just like conventional, still in your personal names, or is there options for closing in LLCs or something like that?
It's from what I understand, it's similar after servicing, it's something you may be able to. So again, it's client by client in a lot of ways and product by product. So.
Yeah, and there are certain investors that would entertain the use of a business entity as far as origination goes.
Okay. So the product's nice. I guess it's nice you guys like that you all have options now outside of what you probably had, maybe coming from a traditional smaller bank scenario or something like that.
Sure.
On a
Correct.
Another option I know is, we get a lot of people who like, all right, so I don't have a bunch of capital or equity to kind of throw down on something to start getting into real estate investing or so forth. But obviously, I tell a lot of younger people, some of the best ways you can do that is through, what some people call the traditional house hacking type of scenario, or buying a duplex, living in obviously one side of it, and then renting out the other as a part of that. So talking about those options for, especially somebody, how valuable that can be for somebody when they purchase their first house to kind of set themselves up for long-term success in that, and what kind of rules apply in that as far as what's presented down, as well as how the rent potentially impacts that at all as far as what you are looking at.
That's a great question. I've had one of my dad's buddies right before I bought my first home. He's like, "Hey, you should buy a duplex." Mm-hmm. I wasn't in the mortgage industry just yet, but it's a great option. Now, let's be clear: your intention is to move in one side. So,
yes.
I mean, that is very important. If you plan to live there, establish that 1-2 years, where that number is to live there, but as little as 3.5% down. So it's a great way to start a portfolio, and maybe move up the next, rent it out and buy a single family. But I think it's a great option. The conventional side is typically 15% down, and we can look at the FHA loans for the lower down payment. So
when we're talking numbers, again, percentage rate is the annual. So you take, just if you don't know, again, you take the annual interest rate divided by 12, and that's really what it comes down to in that respect. So we're talking, for $150,000 your duplex, potentially you'll have to put $5,000-$6,000 down, not including closing costs and other stuff like that, right? It seems like a no-brainer, stuff like that. Has COVID, and we'll get to a little bit in that, has COVID changed things in the sense of what you're saying for new builds potentially and closings, that are duplexes becoming more popular as far as new builds again in some respects? Or I don't know if you've seen any of that or not. It seems like a lot of duplexes I know about, they're usually older properties is what I'm getting at. Are we seeing or are you seeing new builds in that respect of people buying newer ones?
I'd say, and I agree with you, especially in this community, Central Kentucky, largely. I agree. Your multiple 2, 3, 4 unit properties are largely older. I haven't seen a ton of new construction as far as the multiple units go.
Yeah.
Again, your 2, 3, 4 residential style homes.
I know I've seen some in like Richmond or so forth, so it might be more like not Lexington, but the surrounding counties type of scenario. But
I've got a couple of newer ones going on in Richmond right now. So
yeah. And so a lot of times, are they purchasing that whole property type of scenario, or are they purchasing more like a townhouse, kind of owning one side of it kind of a scenario? How, does it just depend?
Depends. I'd say more of the duplex though than the individual unit.
So 3.5% down. Obviously, what if somebody's looking at, what else are they looking at that what are you underwriting? What are you looking at that they need to know? If they want to start working on this now to kind of get prepared for the future to do so.
Mitch hit on that. I think even on those 1 to 4 family FHA, you can count rent, correct?
Yeah, so I think it's good to define what we're talking about here, right? So single family, everybody knows what that means. Multiple units, Fannie, Freddie, FHA, even VA, you can include 2, 3, or 4 unit properties. Now, anything more than that's going to be a different conversation. Sure. But we mentioned duplex, but could be 2, 3, 4 unit property. FHA specifically, as little as 3.5% down. Certain market rents, as verified by an appraiser, could be counted in that if that's needed for qualifying income purposes. But I agree with you. People use the term house hack, and I think that's a great way to do it. Obviously, it's going to be situationally dependent. Yeah. And even on the conventional side, I will throw this out there, Josh. If I remember, Freddie, if you qualify for the Home Possible, I think the maximum LTV on Home Possible 2 unit is 5% down.
That's correct.
95%. So there could be some possibilities across other loan types as well.
That's the frustrating part sometimes of what is allowed to count towards income and what's not allowed to count towards income, which should be like in our head, it makes like, well, this is income. Why is it not counting as income in some respects, or as far as what I'm qualified for? So, but obviously that's why you guys are the experts and contacting you to kind of walk through those plans of action of ahead of time. Like, honestly, it seems like people contact realtors first before they contact, the lending side. And really, a lot of times it needs to be the other way around. You need to kind of start talking to lenders way ahead of time to kind of know where you need to be, what you're going to have down or qualified for before you can even really, you kind of need to do that well in advance a lot of times, especially if you're a new home buyer or something like that.
Agreed. And I think that's the approach that Josh and I both take, is more of that consultant or advisory role. If you're just Googling mortgage rates and just treating this as a transaction, I think that's the wrong approach, whether it's your first home, whether it's your 10th investment property. Because at the end of the day, this is really a financial or wealth planning tool, right? We're taking on debt for a purpose. So different ways to structure debt, different loan types, all of that's going to come into play. So, it's important to us to treat the client as if we're consulting or advising, because at the end of the day, they're making one of the largest purchases they're probably going to make in their lifetime.
And I agree with that. We don't want to back into their payment. Like, hey, we saw this $300,000 house and we try to back into what they, none of those numbers don't match up. So, seeking what's your comfortable down payment, and then we'll go from there. So,
nice. Josh, what are you all seeing as far as COVID and everything like that? Is how are things changing now? Start us off on the, obviously rents, and there's several increases that are about to happen. At the taping of this, things have kind of started to get crazy in Russia and so forth, which who knows where that leads here by the time this podcast comes out. But, what are you guys seeing in the market in that respect as far as rates and everything?
I'll speak to the rates. I'd say as a whole, we're probably up 1% since November. And what's crazy is, everybody's seeing that in the news, but historically we're great, right? Yeah. But I'm spending my time updating pre-qualification, saying, hey, or pre-approvals, like, hey, here's where your payment is now. And speaking to COVID, one thing that's kind of been a blessing is they've let up on the self-employment guidelines. So we still have to get tax returns and all that stuff. And
how has that changed specifically?
Profit and losses, and more business bank statements. They've let up on some of the additional stuff we had to ask for.
Meaning, like, if you're self-employed, you've got to wait. Traditional things like you need 2 years of tax returns type of stuff.
So it was 2 years tax returns plus profit and loss. Okay. Plus business bank statements and some other stuff.
So what specifically again?
The business bank statements and profit and loss.
Interesting. And that's more for conventional side of things, I assume. Then,
they've just let that up. They've let
commercial's still doing that, obviously.
Sure.
And sometimes they have more liberty to do certain things.
Speaking more of the conforming, we're talking, in general.
Okay. You all have any investment properties yourself? Or plan to?
No, but speaking of the house hacking, I've got I've got my oldest daughter in college, so I'm planning ways to get that first home a little down, right? That's right. For her and some friends to live in. So,
I mean, that's a great point right there, actually. And let's expand about that. I mean, like, even if you don't want to get into investing, as a way as a parent to, potentially do something that goes such a long way for your kid, in college and like that, and kind of partnering with them on something like that. I mean, that's going to be huge.
Well, I've just been thinking through it, like, $150,000 home 3 years ago, maybe, I don't know, 220, 215. Mm-hmm. So they're all a little bit different. What's it going to be in 4 or 5 years when my oldest is buying a home? So there are ways that, you can, with it being her primary residence, there's ways we can get in with as little as 5% down. So that's some conversations that we'd love to have with, parents of soon-to-be college students. And
is that something like a second home type of scenario? If it's like your family's living in it kind of thing?
Primary residence for your child.
For the right child, okay.
Yeah, as long as they're living there as a primary.
Even though you're on the account type of thing too, so you could almost have...
Non-occupant, we can be a co-signer basically.
Gotcha, okay, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, that is great. Yeah, I mean, again, though, that can go such a long way, especially if they, like you said, co-sign, they get out of college and you have a house. I mean, nothing against anybody. Like me and my wife, we purchased our own home back when we first got married. They had the Obama first-time homeowners tax credit, so it was more like a no-brainer. Like, well, why are we going to go rent? We should just go ahead and buy the house. I mean, this is here. We got to take advantage of it. But definitely, like, I remember those people who either already had a house or kind of gifted a house or something along the lines like we just talked about, co-signed, like back in college. I mean, it felt like they were 2 steps ahead of us type of thing in life sometimes, starting out kind of thing as a new family and a newly married couple and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, it could be huge.
Sure.
Switching gears here a little bit, what are some of your all's kind of professional or personal goals you guys got going on this year, 2022?
Very personal. Trying to get back in shape, man.
Yeah.
Trying to get back in shape.
Well, you don't look like you're out of shape. I'm trying. I just started working out for the first time, like, really in my life. So
it's trying to keep up with. And for those of you who can't see us, it's Bring Your Son to Work Day. So my 15-year-old's with me. I'm trying to keep up with him now. So yeah, personal goal is trying to get back in shape.
Josh,
something along the same line, just self-care. I mean, if I wake up and take great care of myself, I'll be able to take care of my family and clients even better. So self-care is a huge.
I talk about it a lot in here.
Consistently.
Consistent and habits. And I was never great at some of those, and I've been trying to. You realize kind of like how far those can go if you don't have direction, you don't have a plan, you don't have habits. Like you're just kind of wandering, and it's just you get a haze and you just fall back into old habits and so forth.
Get it done in the morning. It's not going to happen later. Whatever you tell yourself.
Routine's a powerful thing.
It is. I mean, it really is. And it's something they don't teach you either. It's
Correct.
like all the things we should learn about in school, like mortgages and insurance and how real estate works and how habits, they don't teach you any of that. And you're like, that's so much more valuable than half the stuff
I vote for, I've said this for a long time, Life 101. I don't know why. I don't know
seriously.
why that. I mean,
Adulting 101.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, we Josh and I, and I'm sure yourself, harp on a lot of financial principles.
Yeah.
Which I think, building on that, someone should have to take a personal finance class.
Yeah.
In high school.
As long as it's been updated from updating what's the word I'm looking for? Checking balance. What's the word I'm looking for there?
Balancing your checkbook.
Yeah, balancing your checkbook.
Yeah.
If we've hopefully transitioned away from balancing your checkbook type of classes.
I used to go back and teach.
What's a checkbook?
Yeah.
I used to go back and teach JA, if you all ever remember the Junior Achievement.
Yeah.
And their curriculum, starting in 7th graders, was kind of working them through banks and how that works. But it was like, balancing a check. They looked at me like I had 3 eyeballs when I said checkbook. And some of it rightfully so, right?
Right.
And coming from the banking world, I couldn't tell you where my checkbook is, but the principle's the same.
What was your all's first concert you all attended?
Lexington. Rupp Arena, Leonard Skinner, and Montgomery Gentry.
Okay.
So I'm not your concert goer.
Okay.
I've probably gone more in the last 3 years than I did my first 38 years of life. But my wife and I went to Boys to Men at a casino. I forget, one of those Louisville casinos.
Yeah.
It was probably like 15 or 16.
Really?
2016.
Hold on. So you guys have been together since high school?
No. I mean,
sorry,
I'm older than you, sir.
Yes.
No. So we got married in 2002.
Okay.
So I've known her since '99.
Okay.
But in 2016 was probably one of my first concerts together.
2016. I misheard that. I'm so sorry.
My bad. 16. Sorry.
Yeah. The year 2016. Got it. Favorite date night restaurant? Where are you guys going?
Man, Coeur d'Alene, I think, is our go-to.
I've yet to be there. It's downtown, right?
Yeah, but Carson's is probably right
Yeah.
there. We end up at Carson's a lot, so.
Man, those
new restaurant.
My wife, she's not huge on like ribs and stuff like that, but those ribs there, man,
That's good.
you don't even have to be a ribs eater to like those ribs there.
Agreed.
I don't know, honestly, it seems like the older I get, the more I like the best tasting versions of certain foods are always at the restaurants that you would not think would be known for that, like. You know, like, oh, it's a barbecue place or rib place, but no, like, and then my favorite tacos are like OBC or something like that, where you're like, they're not even a taco place, you know? But as far as Kentucky goes, though, kind of wrap it up, you know, what's some of your all's favorite parts, things about Kentucky, or somebody's moving the area? I assume you guys have, like a lot of other people I know, have had a lot of clientele moving to the state of Kentucky, which I'm assuming you would agree does not lend itself to slowing down necessarily anytime soon. But, you know, what would you be telling them? What's good about Kentucky?
Agreed. I mean, I think everybody knows what bourbon and horses, Keeneland. I'll take a little different path. There's nothing in this world that I'd rather do than fish. And I think especially for freshwater lakes, Kentucky's almost underappreciated nationally. Kentucky Lake, which is, for those of you who don't know, kind of that Paducah, southwest Kentucky. Kentucky Lake, Lake Barkley is my favorite. If you've never been, Land Between the Lakes, hidden gem in my opinion. Great place.
Well, I've always heard we have more shoreline than Florida, technically.
That's
interesting.
When you really stop and think about it.
I'm gonna throw Keeneland out there.
Okay.
We're a month away from enjoying that beautiful place, and then I'm going with lakes too. We bought our first boat last February.
You and a lot of other people.
So
yeah.
The tax bill came on that one. I'm like, it's not worth that much, I promise. But just like Laurel Lake is where we camped a lot, and camping on these, around these lakes as well.
That's been nice with COVID too. Like that's really picked up the tourism internally within the state of Kentucky. And
if you're selling campers and boats, you've done all right the last few years. So
that's right. Last question. I mean, if someone wants to get in touch with you all as far as looking into, what they need to be doing for house hacking down the road, or looking at some conventional options, maybe some real estate or so forth, how can they get in touch with you all?
Yeah, so I think Josh and I are similar in the sense that if you can't call me or text me on my cell phone, probably in the wrong business, right?
Yep.
So cell phone's probably the best for me, 859-533-0764. I don't know if I'm going to regret giving that out over the air or not, but that's what it is. So call me, text me, always happy to help.
And same for me. This is Josh Harman, 859-248-6389.
Perfect. Mitch, Josh, thanks for coming on the show today. Appreciate your time, and thanks for listening to another episode of the Real Estate Kentucky Keys to the Commonwealth. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll see everybody next week. Guys, thanks.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks.
To learn more about this podcast, visit our page at keystothecommonwealth.com. To connect with Landry regarding insuring your investment portfolio, email Landry at novainsuranceGroup.com or call 859-687-2004.